Molly Superthorpe. Welcome to my channel, where I offer bite-sized tutorials and demonstrations in calligraphy and hand lettering, and upload a brand new video every Friday. Some of you who watch may know that I'm the author of 3 books about calligraphy, and the first, Modern Calligraphy, and the third, Mastering Modern Calligraphy, are how-to guides about modern script calligraphy styles. Well, I'm frequently asked if there are ways to practice the exercises and letter exemplars from these books digitally on the iPad in Procreate. And the answer is a big resounding yes, and I'm going to show you that today in a short demonstration. There's a quick disclaimer first, which is just that all the content in these books is copyrighted, so when you bring them into your iPad digitally, you won't be able to turn them into something like a practice sheet that you sell or distribute publicly, but that's boring and you probably all already know that anyway, so let's dive right into the demo.
The first step for practicing from my books digitally is to own the ebook edition of it. Now, all 3 of my books are available as ebooks on all of the major platforms, but if you are on an iPad and working from an iPad, it means that you already have this books app. It comes directly on your iPad and connects through your iTunes store. So if I tap that, and again, you can buy this from your Kindle, that's fine. I'm just demonstrating here with the ebook version from iBooks. So if I come in here, I can search in the bottom right corner of the bookstore for my name, Molly Superthorpe, for the name of the book, what have you. So if you don't already own it, this is how you can search and buy it directly through the app. Today I'm going to demonstrate using my most recent book, Mastering Modern Calligraphy, but again, this demonstration could work with my other book as well. Here I just have the cover showing, and I'll come up here to the top left, this hamburger menu. Most likely when you click that, the first thing you'll see is this index. So I want to move over to the top left icon and look at a page thumbnail view. Now here you'll see that every single page of the book is laid out and the page numbers correspond to the print edition. So I can scroll through here. Of course, I can read it here on the book. It's not as if you need to own both, and of course this is a great way to travel with it or set it up on your desk for ink on paper practice. That's all fine too. But if I go back to this thumbnail view here, I'm going to scroll down until I find some letter forms that I really want to practice today. How about M for my name, my initials? So just like on the iPad in any app, you can pinch and zoom in right here, which is pretty cool. You can tap an image to zoom into it even more, and the way that my publisher and I did this book is to break up certain page images like you just saw, the N's and the M's, so that you can zoom in separately to each one. Now, I'm also personally going to bookmark this page in the top right just so that it marks to me that I've already saved this page out. It's just like a reference to me that I've already selected this page for Procreate practice. So now, making sure I'm zoomed out of all of those images, I'll just take a quick screen capture, which is by holding the power button and volume up button simultaneously, just clicking them real quick here. And now it has automatically saved itself to the Photos app on my iPad. Now I'm in my Procreate gallery, and I could create a new art file and place the photo into it, or even easier, I can come up to the top right here and click Photo, then browse for my photo and open it this way. Now it's created a new art file for this photo of the exact size, and if I come to the art layer, you'll see that it has put itself on its own layer here. I'll turn the opacity way down, not so far though. If I zoom in, I want to be able to see these arrows that I have. I want to be able to, easily see all the strokes, but I also want to be able to trace it without it being distracting. So I've reduced the opacity, and then second, I'm swiping left and hitting lock. And the reason for that is that Procreate will throw up an error to you if you try to write on a locked layer. So that means that you're going to be able to preserve this layer and not accidentally write onto it. So now I'll create a new blank layer, and let's come up to a fun color. I'll choose this pink. And for myself personally, I'm going to use a brush from my Calligraphy Nibs brush pack, but you can use any brush that you like. It doesn't have to be my brush. I have linked them below if you're interested, but use any brush that you want for this type of practice. So here on my blank layer, I'm just going to practice going over these tracing. I can experiment with my brush size for different effect. And I have a couple options here. I could practice just going around the whole page, tracing each letter one by one, and then potentially going back and do it again. Or let's say I really want to master this M. I have a couple options. I can come here and I can trace it once. Now if I want to trace it again, a couple options. I can tap this selection tool and just move my previous version out of the way. You can't see it, but I have my left hand hovering over the selection tool, so I can quickly move it down, and my right hand here to draw. That is a pretty efficient method. But of course you can also just create a new blank layer if you want. You can turn off your practice layer, turn on a new blank layer, and keep tracing that way. Now, a lot of people do ask me, well, does digital practice help with ink on paper calligraphy and vice versa? And my answer is yes. Even though the tools that you may use, the brushes themselves and the screen or paper texture are different, I do think that one benefits the other. The reason is a lot to do with pressure. The pressure that I'm exerting right now on this pressure-sensitive pen is pretty much the same as what I would be exerting if this were a metal dip pen nib on paper. And so being able to practice this here on my iPad screen means that if I then move over to ink on paper, two things will happen. One, the pressure practice that I did here on the iPad will carry over. I'll be able to draw on the learning that I did about what pressure creates what kind of stroke, and the muscle memory aspect, meaning the actual movement of my hand, remembering that I can move upward this way and down then in that kind of an angle. That will also apply. One thing that you may want to consider if you really are thinking of this as a method of practicing that you'll then translate to ink on paper is to do it at a more realistic size rather than really zoomed in as you would do it on ink and paper. So for example, I know that on the screen that you're watching, this can seem relative, but I'll create a new blank layer. Now let's just do a new color here. And I've zoomed out enough so that for me, I know that this N is roughly the height of a real uppercase N if I were gonna, let's say, address an envelope and use it or practice it on a practice sheet as ink on paper. So from a muscle memory standpoint, training my hands, my fingers, my wrist, my arm, training myself to draw that, I'm training it at scale for ink on paper. So again, if that's a concern for you, then this is a great method, is zooming out and making sure you're practicing it at scale. But if this is really just about learning digital lettering too, then zooming in and practicing it is all the same. Now, of course, if you want to add another practice sheet from the book, you can either repeat the exact same process, or you can go in and take that screen capture of the page you want, and you can come up to the wrench icon and insert a photo. As I have this one, you have all of your practice in the same place. So that might be helpful if you're trying to practice a number of things at once and keep them condensed into the same Procreate file. Thank you for following along. I hope that this video has inspired you and given you some insight into methods for practicing calligraphy digitally. Please let me know in the comments if this is a method that you do already and that you enjoy, and if you have any video ideas for me that I could create to help you in your practice. And as always, tag me on Instagram in your work if you feel like sharing, because I always love to have a peek at the work that people create.